We actually just raised about $10 million, so $9.75 million in March
Canadian.
this year, correct, Canadian, at 75 cents per share. So really nice price in terms of where we're trading at right now today, which is in the 50-cent band. And what that basically does is sets us up really nicely where we don't need to go back to the market and raise cash for a while. We can get through our whole drilling program on the northern project. We can do all our geophysics on the southern project, get some more drilling in, and keep working on all the other operational developments we have. So we want to keep the structure extremely tight. We've been really strategic in terms of how we raise capital to date, and we definitely don't anticipate, going back unless we're obviously, hitting the type of milestones we want to hit.
Good day, everybody. Steve Yang here, Natural Resource Stocks. I have with me Zachary Dolesky from Copper Corp, founder and CEO. Zachary, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Good to see you, Steve.
Zachary, nice to meet you. For the listeners who are just following, if you can start off by giving your ticker, your website, and where you're
Yeah,
trading.
absolutely. So our company is Copper Corp. We're traded on the Canadian markets under the symbol CUPR and on the OTCQB in the US under the symbol CUPPF. And we're a mining exploration platform focused on copper. We have two main projects in the Atacama region of Chile, which is one of the top producing copper regions of the whole world. And we're just entering a drilling program right now. So really exciting months ahead.
So, Zachary, I looked on your site. It looks like you've got two main projects. Which one do you consider your flagship, and why do you have two projects?
Sure. So our flagship is the one we're drilling right now. So that's the northern project called Cordillera Cobre. It's about 30 minutes drive north of the Lundin's Candelaria project, which is one of the largest IOCG projects in the world. And that's been the main project we've been, getting to this stage over the past 3 years in terms of permitting, doing all the geophysics work in order to get to our maiden drilling program, which is happening right now. And last year we acquired another asset called the Castilla Project. That's a bit further south, right beside another publicly traded mining company that's doing very well. And that asset, we're just going through geophysics right now to set up drill targets. So both really exciting, getting really high grade mineralization on surface, up to 17% copper. We're also getting a lot of gold and silver concentrations as well. So we're continuing to build up our company as a platform. So we're going to keep evaluating good opportunities. And for now, the flagship is the one we're drilling.
So, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Cordillera.
Yeah,
What
Cordillera. Yeah,
what drew you to that project specifically? What do you think you have? If you can just tell us a little bit about just what drew you to there.
certainly. So firstly, the region it's in, there's a lot of artisanal and then some previously very active mines. And it's quite a large land package, but it had a little bit of scout drilling back in 2007. And what that did was give us, some good indication of what was happening. And more recently, we analyzed all that drill core, completed a bunch of geophysics. And what we've identified is this big anomaly system underneath our main target, which we're drilling into now. And that historical scout drilling actually clipped the edges of it. It wasn't very deep, maybe about 150 to 200 meters subsurface. But as it started getting to the edge of the anomaly we're seeing under our geophysics, that's where all the copper is showing up on the core. So, in terms of our perspective right now, it's just slicing through that thing and excited to see what comes of it.
So my understanding is in that area is pretty. You're right there on this. I don't know what the belt's called, but it's quite the copper mine there. I think we got major deposits there, if I'm not mistaken. Candelaria is there. I think Monteverde was there as well. If
Correct.
you can just kind of tell us kind of what they found and kind of what you think you have in comparison.
Yeah, certainly. So Candelaria, like I mentioned, it's about a 30-40 minute drive south of our flagship project. That's one of the largest, most successful producing copper projects in the world. It's an IOCG type structure. And in terms of what we're seeing is a lot of similar indicators from the geophysics, from the surface, from the actual trend and mineralization of our project. So, you know, uh, like everyone knows, the surface is the surface, the geophysics is the geophysics. But right now, going into this drill program is really the most exciting time for us. So we're going to see how those results come, but feeling very positive.
The IOCG as iron oxide, copper, gold. If you can
Correct.
expound a little bit, kind of what that is, a little bit more, and just is it on at surface? I mean, what's the significance of what you're finding here?
Correct. So, with our project specifically, there's a lot of copper all across the surface. So you can see it visually. We've done a large number of samples across the whole property to kind of line in on where we want to drill and where we think we have the most potential in terms of this system. With with our setup, it's about 200 meters below surface where this anomaly is showing up, and that's where we're going into. So we're going to do about 12 to 13 holes, likely around 500 to 600 meters in depth. But what that specifically means is similar to the other IOCGs, so these type of very productive copper deposits, it's a little bit closer to surface, which is what you want because in this region there is quite a bit of open pit mineralization, open pit development, and that's the most economical. So basically, it just strikes a lot of the right aspects you want in a potential discovery.
And what's the grade, the scope, the scale that you think you have, and then if you can tell us a little bit more about the maiden I think you're going through a resource right now, your drill program.
Yeah, so first drill program, in terms of grades on the historical core that clipped the edges, it was getting up to 1.6% copper. There was also quite a large concentration of silver as well on this northern project I'm talking about. And in terms of the anomaly size, it's quite extensive. So it's about 800 meters at least in length, and then size kind of 400 by 400 meter type of anomaly system. So in terms of scale, it's definitely there. In terms of mineralization, we've got some historical clarity that there is copper mineralization there. And the directionality and everything else is lining up nicely. So our question is more when we drill through this thing, what type of average grades are we going to be getting? Are we going to be getting 0.5, 0.6% and above? And that becomes extremely exciting. There's a lot of comparables and, basis in this region that makes that very positive, or is it going to be lower grade, which is obviously the downside, but things are looking quite good.
And my understanding of Chile is it's friendlier than a lot of maybe the peers in many developing countries, but I think there's still some risk. Could you talk a little bit about what kind of political risk there is, and what are you seeing? How are things changing?
Sure. So from a perspective, it's actually the number one producing country in the whole world for copper. So it really is the best place in the world to mine copper and develop it out. There is a built out framework in terms of permitting regulation and building to the next phase. And thankfully, right now, part of the last few years of assembling everything on our flagship project has been the permitting process and getting the full rights, which we've now accomplished. So it's pretty much minimized from the regulatory perspective. From the overall government side as well, there's a new president that came in at the end of last year, and he's extremely pro-business, pro-mining, and I think it's going to continue, if not really accelerate the demand and the ability to develop in this region compared to some of the other countries. So really quite exciting right now.
From what you've seen locally nearby, I mean, how long does the permitting process usually take?
So it depends on the stages you go just to get the land itself under your registration rights. So mining
Yeah.
exploitation rights can take 2 years, and that's what we've gone through on our flagship project. And then once you get to the next stage of actual development, it's a pretty streamlined process. And we've seen that in terms of some other companies nearby us, like Rio 2, get into full development in a pretty accelerated manner. A number of
Yeah.
other companies as well. So it kind of flows in line that if you're getting the economical style of deposits that justify development stage, it's a pretty straightforward path. And it's not, like some other countries where you've got all this geopolitics, all this red tape. It's very efficient.
And what are you guys doing with the community there? Is that a relationship you're, determined to foster there? And what do you guys, how's the relationship right now?
Yeah, community is great. So the main city there is Copiapó. That's the name of it, and it's really a fully built out mining town and city. So there's a lot of processing plants in the region. The whole basically community there is employed in the mining space as well, and it's been developed there for 20, 30 years. So it's not necessarily like a new or more risky jurisdiction. It's really a fully built out area. And also, what we're doing is drawing on some of the local talent, hiring some of the geologists, the exploration teams, et cetera, bringing in the right parties from the area as well. So very positive.
And then so you got two major projects. Well, one it's more of a, I guess, on the development stage or your advanced exploration brownfield, and the other, I guess, is a
More
greenfield high
greenfield,
upside,
correct? Yeah, yeah,
high upside, high risk sort of thing. Is that the kind of the kicker thing there? And what's the
that's correct.
timeline that you're going to be working on the Castilla side?
So both projects, because we're actually in relatively close geographic distance to each other,
Okay.
so within sort of 150 kilometers of each other, and it really works in lockstep. So right now, drilling our northern project, and that's going to be sort of a 2, 3 month process. Halfway through, we'll send the core down to the labs and start getting results there. And at the same time, we're finishing up geophysics on our southern project. And what that's going to give us is the delineated drill target list. So our plan is really drill out the northern project, and then right as we're waiting for those results to start coming in, we can start drilling on that southern project. And it really gives us two major swings at bat here.
And so the plan overall is, in terms of developing the other one, you're looking at what? What's the timeline there? Like 2 years?
So I mean, development always will follow the results and the grading
Yeah.
from the drill program. The reality is we're going to have drilling on both projects in process this
Okay.
year, and then based on those results, we're going to adjust and move from there. But I guess the immediate catalyst perspective is really these next few months.
Okay. And so what are we looking forward to in terms of what news should we be looking out for, and when should we expect it?
So geophysics is going to be over the next few weeks from our
Uh,
southern project. So we'll be putting results out in terms of what we're finding subsurface. From the surface work we've done on that project, it's really exciting. And because it's right beside another project that's very active right now, we've got a lot of I guess parallels we can draw in terms of how our geology is looking. So it'll be the first look below the surface on that geophysics on our southern project. And the northern one, it's as we go straight into the drilling program here, we'll be publishing what we can, but we'll kind of have
yeah.
that big set of first catalysts coming up.
And jurisdiction wise, every area has its own challenges. Geography. Sometimes people are limited by weather or whatever. In terms of for you guys, my understanding is that Chile can be pretty, tough to find water. Is that the case? And how are you guys? What challenges are you finding, and how are you guys mitigating those risks and challenges?
Yes, so a few things here. In terms of our projects, they're both around or below 1,500 meters above sea level. So where you have some projects that are far up north into the mountains and you have some seasonality to how you can work on it, our projects we can work on year round. So that's a big uptick. And then in terms of water, the whole area, since it's been active with other developing mines and producing areas, it's actually not a major issue. And they've already announced some new developments in terms of desalination plants and other water, I guess, infrastructure that's being built up. It's also about an hour away from a port called Caldera, which is right on the ocean there. So there are some jurisdictions there which do have a lot of issues in terms of water, but thankfully we're in a really specific area that's, not really subject to that as much as others.
And then you're pretty close to a major highway. Is that the case? Is that the case for both?
Yeah, correct. So there's a nice paved highway nearby both projects, and then we've got some roads we've built up as well to get to our projects. So there's not, we can drive the drill rigs right in on our trucks, and it's not like we have to deal with helicopters to get to our target zones, which is always less relaxing, I would say.
Yeah, Zachary, I want to pivot a little bit to your share structure and how much you have in the bank. But first of all, I was looking at your share structure. Great job. I like tight share structures.
Mhm.
I don't like, I mean, it's pretty tight. If you can tell us about the amount of cash you have, how far that takes you, as well as breaking down the share structure. I saw that I think you have like about 40% ownership in terms of insiders and institutions. Correct me if I'm wrong, and who are the major players here?
Sure. So myself, I'm the founder, CEO, biggest shareholder. In terms of the capital side, we actually just raised about $10 million, so $9.75 million in March
Canadian.
this year, correct, Canadian, at 75 cents per share. So really nice price in terms of where we're trading at right now today, which is in the 50-cent band. And what that basically does is sets us up really nicely where we don't need to go back to the market and raise cash for a while. We can get through our whole drilling program on the northern project. We can do all our geophysics on the southern project, get some more drilling in, and keep working on all the other operational developments we have. So we want to keep the structure extremely tight. We've been really strategic in terms of how we raise capital to date, and we definitely don't anticipate, going back unless we're obviously hitting the type of milestones we want to hit. Some other things I would say, we have a very good strategic investor, Christian Angermeyer from a Pyron Investment Group. So he's a relatively well-known billionaire, very active, and he's an insider of our company as well. So he's the other largest shareholder, and they've been extremely supportive and had a lot of success across their portfolio. So great to have them in the cap table as well.
And how many shares outstanding did you say you had?
We have about 54 million shares outstanding right now.
That's pretty tight.
Yeah, and out of that, like what is it? The last financing was about 13 million shares at
Uh,
75 cents. And then prior to that, the last financing was around 40 cents. But all that's been free trading for a while now. So there's no like locked up blocks of shares that are coming free trading
yeah.
at some, discounted price. So really clean in terms of an overall structure now.
And what's your philosophy on dilution?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, our biggest return and my biggest personal return is having the share price at a right value and continuing to grow. And dilution is obviously important at some stage, but right now we don't want to go back to the market anytime soon. We're well cashed up to hit all our milestones and work through what we think we can really build up. So my philosophy is basically as little dilution as possible, unless it really moves the needle for the near to long term.
And how much skin do you have in the game? And Zachary, if you can also tell us about your experience and just kind of your background a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, for myself, I have quite a bit of personal capital in the business. I'm an insider buyer constantly. And obviously reputation and, having this be successful is the most important thing. And what that means is, getting fundamental valuation up through results and then continuing to grow the actual business. My background for context, I did about 5 years with a family office in Canada doing investing in metals and mining and also technology. And then I left to start a business on the technology side and sold part of that off. And then I reinvested in a number of different companies with my personal capital. And then I really wanted to get in the mining sector aggressively. And this was about 4 years ago. I was looking at different assets in the copper space specifically because I'm extremely bullish on it. I think the long-term potential is there. Obviously, you have structural deficits. And I managed to pick up what was the Cordillera Cobre Project, so the start of it. And privately, I put in some capital and did the first set of geo work. It started looking more promising. So we brought in a bit more capital, kept developing that out. And then we listed the company publicly in October 2024 and just
Yeah.
been, continuing to really keep the pace on since then.
Zachary, who else do you have around you that helps complement your team? If you can brag about your team a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. So Mike Dufresne's our lead geo. So he's the founder of Apex Geoscience, which is one of the top geoscience firms in the world. And he's been really instrumental since the very beginning of the project. He's personally been involved in, some very large discoveries. So also him and his team have a lot of experience in the region we're in. In addition, we brought in Mark Gibson. So he's a technical advisor to the company. He was actually the past chief operating officer of Ivanhoe Electric. So, one of the top copper companies in the world. He was also the chief geophysics officer there. And together, alongside the rest of the team, we really built out a very strong base in terms of fundamental geological understanding. And then all that just flows into the next programs we're in here.
Zachary, I'm very bullish on copper. So I guess I want to ask
Likewise.
for myself as well as maybe a copper enthusiast, why super copper? If you want to talk about either the market cap or the value that we're getting, if you can just tell me why we should be excited about super copper.
Yeah, I think a few things, but one, obviously valuation. When you compare to some of our neighbors and what's coming up in the region, I think we're at a very, very good level right now, and there's a lot of upside potential. I don't think the market's really pricing in much discovery from our flagship project, which is being drilled right now. I don't think they're pricing in too much discovery from our southern project, which will be really getting into work as well very imminently. And then the fact that we don't need capital right now. We're nicely financed, treasury strong to do everything we need to do. And we brought a whole new set of shareholders as well in this last financing at 75 cents. Some very strong entrepreneurs, some mining investors that have been very successful. So the whole team around us now is as strong as it's ever been. So I think, I'd like to say everything, but from a structural and fundamental level, if we can get the grades and the meterage that we're hoping to on this program, I think there's a lot of comparables that should re-rate us in the right way.
And you got upcoming news. How can people follow that news, and how can people follow you guys?
For sure. So on X, you can follow us at Super Copper Co. On our website, supercopper.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there. And of course, just, adding the stock to your watch list, CUPR on the Canadian markets and CUPPF on the US markets. And really from there, you'll get all the latest info as soon as it's out.
Zachary, thanks for the introduction. Great meeting you. For our listeners, I am not currently an investor, although that may change. I usually don't invest until I meet the CEO and have a
Of course.
conversation, and this was very informative and helpful. I am not an investor yet. I am not giving investment advice, although I would say do your own due diligence and check out the website and check out the ticker and follow them, follow their story. Look for the news releases and reach out to Zach with any questions. Zach, did you give your email, or how can people contact you?
Yes, they can email me at zach@supercopper.com.
All right, Zach, thanks so much for being here.
Likewise,
Have a
thanks
good
for
one.
having me. See you, Steve.
Bye bye.